My
a little
blood
bit,
is
but yeah,
boiling.
exactly. That's why you could tell I
But
was getting so pissed
let me
off. 'Cause
state something to you, Scarborough. You scumbag.
welcome to episode number 38 of the Tim and John Show. I'm Tim Picciott, the Liberty Advisor, joined with my main man John Snice and the Economic Truth. And today we are joined by one of the hidden hands behind the scenes, Arthur Diamondhands, who has done a lot of work to help get this show actually, up and running. Because John and I are doing a lot of things on a daily basis, and he's sort of, if you guys are, any of you watch or read Cash Daddies, he's sort of our version of Little E. Once we get him trained up on completely up on the ones and twos, he'll be at the helm, controlling things and helping this out, helping the show grow. But we have been up to a lot of things, and one of those things that I've seen that has just blown my mind recently. And it's very hard to blow my mind. I mean, here I am and all hopped up on, caffeinated seltzer water over here. But I see that the M1 monetary data, and for those of you who don't know, the M1 data is basically the most narrow definition of the money supply, comprising the currency in circulation plus demand deposits or checking account balances. Also, a measure of the money supply includes currency in circulation plus demand deposits or checking account balances. And so the other day, I was listening to, probably a week or two ago, I was listening to my good friend Ernest Hancock's show. He had on Mark Edge of Free Talk Live. And so a lot of stuff's going on with Free Talk Live, for those who don't know, where one of the co-hosts, actually several of the co-hosts, got arrested by the FBI. One of them was actually, Ian Freeman, who's been interviewed before on the show, Real Time Crypto OG. And so I don't want to, get too much into that, and but definitely, if you guys want to support them, the crypto6.com. But one of the things I heard Mark Edge say was that they discontinued the M1 money supply data, that they're not publishing it anymore. So for anyone who's watching this right now on screen with the M1 monetary data, I was like, that sounds like a pants on fire type thing. Like, no way they stopped publishing the M1 data. And so right now here I'm at Fred, the Federal Reserve Economic Database of St. Louis.org. And you see up here, M1 money stock, how it was traditionally calculated, was discontinued. And what's really crazy is you go to, February 17th, 2020. This is measured in billions of dollars, but there was almost, 4,000, billions of dollars that's out there. And then all of a sudden you go to just, a few months later, going over to May, and it's at 16. And so it's just a gigantic, a 4x increase of essentially the most narrow definition of money supply out there. Complete hockey stick, sort of like the Central Bank of Canada's balance sheet, just going completely to the moon. And now they're telling us that basically they're not publishing it in the same way that they were publishing it before. And so, John, do you want to maybe describe what's going on and what this really means for all of this out there in economic nerd geek land?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because they actually did something fun. They didn't do too much to change it really, but what they did is they swapped something between M1 and M2, Tim, and it's very interesting. So I'm gonna actually go straight ahead here and share my screen. And as you can see here, this is the bulletin from February 21st, 2021, and it says, first monthly H6 statistical release. So what it says there is announced on December 17, 2020, the board statistical release H.6 money stock measures will recognize savings deposits as a type of transaction account, starting with the publication today. This recognition reflects the board's action on April 24th of 2020 to remove the regulatory distinction between transaction accounts and savings deposits by deleting the 6 per month transfer limit on savings deposits in Regulation D. This change means that savings deposits have had a similar regulatory definition and the same liquidity characteristics as the transaction accounts reported as other checkable deposits. On the H.6 statistical release, since the change to Regulation D, consequently, today's H.6 statistical release combines combines release items, saving deposits, and other checkable deposits, retroactively back to May of 2020, and includes the resulting sum reported as other liquid deposits in the M1 aggregate. This action increases M1 monetary aggregate significantly while leaving the M2 aggregate unchanged. So Tim, I'm trying to figure out, because I've been looking at this like for an hour or so. I was trying to figure out like what made a big difference here. Like, why did they move that down to M1, Tim, versus like leaving it up at M2? Like, is there a significant gain from them from manipulating the numbers here? Because you know a little bit more about the actual like account type of accounts that a customer could have, right? Uh, so I'm curious, like, what did they really like gain by moving this back, to moving it from M2 to M1 basically?
I mean, they always do things to, make their situation appear better. So, I mean, I think, what I heard you say is something like if someone were moving money back and forth between checking and savings and less than six
Yeah.
times, that it counts as M1 and before it was M2. But I mean, right now we're taking a look at the shadowstats.com alternate data for their money supply charts, and you still see all of them are off the charts. So, I mean, you
Yeah,
even
but
see
what really makes the difference though between a checking and savings accounts these days? Like, there's not very much,
like,
right? Like you,
I get 0.01% of my savings, or I get 0.001 of
well,
my
yeah, it's
checking. Big whoopty fucking do.
one, yeah, like, and the bank is basically gambling it on derivatives or stocks or whatever garbage they can get their hands on. They don't
And
give
they
a
also don't, and
crap.
now they don't
Yeah,
even need to keep anything in reserves, which happened around, probably last March,
yeah.
2020 is
Well,
when
they
they,
went to Canadian model. Like, we've had the zero reserve policy here for like the last 5 or 6 years, and the banks in Canada are the strongest in the world. Uh,
but yeah, then you go over to this,
yeah.
the shadowstats.com, commentary, and you just take a look at it. Cause I was thinking like, okay, well, if they're moving stuff from M2 to M1, then probably you're going to see a big like drop in M2, but that's not really the case. I mean, basically it looks like that went up, 25%,
Mhm.
in the last, in a few months last year during the
So I
height.
wonder what M2. So,
But then
so
M1,
is this because?
went up
Yeah,
70%. So it's
yeah.
it also part of what I think is going on. So if you have M1 and the banks, are unable to create some sort of money, then there's other fractional reserve lending that they can then create. And I'm sort of just thinking this out loud. I don't have this written down. So then if they're then able to, you know, basically leverage it up 10x but if they have $10, they can, basically, lend out $100, which not maybe now they can do even more than that. I don't know. But so let's say they can lend out $100. It almost seems like there's not the equivalent of loans that are even out there, and maybe the banks are just keeping it more for themselves to become, you know, be able to, basically get by from being,
Well,
zombie
don't you think they're like,
corporations,
look at what happened to Archipelagos, or what was the name there?
Archegos or something like
Yeah,
that.
Archipelagos, yeah. Like, they basically used and leveraged, the banks to buy the stocks through the CFDs, right? Like the certificates for the what was that again? Certificates for deposit? No,
No, it was
no, sorry, I
no,
have it
not
up here.
definitely not certificate for deposit. It was
No, I know.
so something for differences, something
Certificate for differences, I think it
or
Contracts
was.
for
Yeah, I think you're right.
differences.
what was that, Diamond Hands?
Contract for differences.
Contract for differences.
Contract, yeah, exactly. Sorry about that.
And
We
other
kind of
C
lost it
words I
here.
was thinking of, but didn't
Yeah.
say. But okay, but we
But
got.
basically,
Thank you.
what's interesting, these banksters, like, they basically let this guy leverage through his teeth. And what happened was that they basically, he used the banks to own all those stocks that he bought. Like, he accumulated $100 billion worth of stocks, which is insane. That's pretty much like one of the biggest, me and Tim talked about it in our last Tim and John show, one of the biggest wealths ever accumulated. And he managed to do that. One guy in a hedge fund on his account,
One little tiger
and
cub.
and what happened, like, right after that? Well, two banks like basically dropped close to 20%. It was Nomura and Credit Suisse, and then you had another bank that got whacked. No, sorry, stocks that got whacked was Viacom. There was two, Baidu, and I forgot the other. Was it Alibaba that got whacked too in China? And there was a couple more. But
Like
anyways,
10 cents Baidu. I mean, mainly it was like
yeah.
Viacom
But
CBS
what's yeah,
CBS was sort of the
oh,
main
CB,
one that
yeah,
started all this because they announced some share, they're gonna basically offer more shares out to the public, which then sort of set all this in motion. And some firms like
yeah.
Morgan Stanley actually got ahead of this and basically then took large blocks of stock and were like calling their hedge fund buddies like, hey, so you know, we got some large orders here from a margin call, and hey, you know, we can get you a good solid over on this and give you, you know, this large block of stock for a real good deal, which AKA they were fucking their own clients. So these are like major
Yeah.
hedge funds that are like, hey, you know, we can get you this, you
Well,
know,
we know that.
value,
We
10
know they don't
cents, or
care yet.
we'll get you a good discount on it. And then they didn't tell them, oh yeah, by the way, because it's a huge fucking margin call that's gonna blow up all your shit. But like, can you imagine that? Like, you're a hedge fund that's managing like $50 billion and you get a call from Morgan Stanley like, hey, we're gonna get you this really great deal, and the great deal is like this hot flaming pile of dog shit that's about to like explode like the next day. And that's sort of what they did.
Well,
And
it
then
sounds like
but the
it
thing
sounds
is,
like
but then
yeah.
they still want to be with them, because if you're part of the Morgan Stanley ecosystem, or Goldman Sachs is very similar thing. So it was Goldman and Morgan who got ahead of this and were like, listen, basically fire sale us. We need to get this out of here right now. Selling it to their own clients. You know, they've called their own clients Muppets before in the past. I mean,
Yeah.
like, can you imagine like if I like had any of that sort of information and like pass it off to one of my clients,
Yeah.
how pissed that they would be, and how, you know, all the regulatory burdens there would be. But who's going to get, you know, Goldman Sachs in trouble? One of their former, you know, basically people that's like running the show right now. And so, but the thing is, they need the IPOs if you're one of these, you know, hedge fund people. And so they're basically willing to be, you know, Morgan Stanley's bitch and get screwed on this, because now they're going to have
Yeah, because
access to,
they're
you
I
know,
think their primary, like I think Morgan Stanley is
they should
still a
call them
primary,
primary
right, Tim?
stealers at the are
Yeah, yeah. This is
crime
very true.
brokers, or crime brokers and stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, exactly.
and from Cash Daddies, I didn't know this, but so this was so Bill Huang was of Archegos, was a tiger cub, which apparently there was some other guy that he was like his mentor, which blah blah blah. He was okay, so he was one of the so-called tiger cubs of legendary hedge fund manager Julian Robertson, who mentored and supported some of the best performing investors, including Stephen Mandel, Lee Ainsley, and Chase Coleman. And basically, you know, this was, you know, anyone that studied underneath this guy with his protege was called a tiger cub. So I don't know, I didn't come up with the name. I know it sounds kind of stupid according to the, you know, Cash Daddies too, but it's just, you know, it's just absolutely crazy. And then I think that I saw another story on Zero Hedge where there was some other big you know, block trades that were going on like I think yesterday and the day before. So they're thinking there might be another family office that's blowing up as well. And the thing is, this is just one little, I would say little, but one little family office. And it sort of reminds me of what was that Klaus Schwab you know, saying, you know, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Well, I hope, you know, Bill Huang, you know, is happy now that he's, you know, somehow managed to lose $80 billion in the span of,
Well, I
know,
guess they followed the suit of what he told them to do. So, you know, that's the whole thing. It's like you own everything then nothing.
yeah.
And you know what's funny though with these certificates for deposit, there's actually a website called Certificates for Deposit, and it like basically goes through the whole
It's contract for differences. It's contract for differences,
sorry,
not
contract.
certificate for.
Yeah, it's sorry, it's
a CD is like the most
um
boring financial instrument there is, and
yeah.
this is some
I'm
crazy stuff that.
I'm mind fucking myself. Sorry, it's
Okay.
I'm just used to like it's
Well,
garbage.
you're not all hopped
CDs
up
are
on
garbage.
caffeinated seltzer water like me.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'd be on the point with this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That would be my brain would be way more sharper. It's like in the trash right now. But with the certificates for deposit, the no, with contracts for differences, it actually is very interesting because they were created in the 1990s, Tim, and they've been floating around. They're actually illegal in the United States, but they're available all around the world, including Canada, Singapore, Australia, a whole bunch of other countries as well. But that's the major countries. I think Japan as well has them available for clients, and there's a lot of hedge funds that are dabbling in them. I think there was like 45 brokers last time I
I
looked
had
at the
never even
stats.
heard of this before.
No,
Diamond Hands, have you
no.
heard of this before? And this broke out.
Oh, not until just now. And yeah, I'm reading this introduction to contracts for differences, and it says it was created as a way to have like a client's money move around markets faster. And I guess the thing that makes it a contract for difference is it's like it's a cash settled instrument where it just pays out the cash from a buy and a sell, it looks like. So like instead of like,
or opposite apparently.
or
Like
yeah,
when I
also
read,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it says about using it as an effective way to short markets, but
Yeah.
it's saying that it just allowed people to participate in more markets, and it sounds to me like it was less friction to do it this way than have to like move money around accounts. Like they were, and so they were able to like place their trades faster. Is like what the big popularity, like that's why it grew in popularity, is
Because
because
apparently, like being able to trade in like nanosecond flash boys with microwaves and stuff isn't fast enough. So now we need more. And
You need picoseconds.
Bye,
That's
bye,
the
bye, bye,
next one.
bye. I don't know. Do you guys see? I've seen a lot of different things with Jamie Dimon. I mean, Jamie Dimon of the J.P. Morgan Chase. And so I did one thing that's really rich for him to say is the fault line is inequality. J.P. Morgan's Diamond calls on fixing America's self-inflicted problems.
Sorry
It
about
says
that.
many of our citizens are unsettled, and the fault line for all of this discord is a fraying American dream. The enormous wealth of our country is accruing to the very few. In other words, the fault line is inequality, and its cause is staring us in the face. What, are you in a fucking mirror, Jamie Dimon? Our own
That's
failure.
hilarious, actually.
Yeah,
That's
to move
hilarious. He's
Jamie
talking about
Dimon
himself.
saying staring us in the face. Yeah. Are you kidding me?
He's talking to himself, basically.
Yeah,
In the
our
article.
failure to move beyond our differences and self-interest and act for the greater good. The good news is that this is fixable, Diamond wrote. Then goes on to say that the 65-year-old pointed out that China, the world's largest economy, predicted to be the largest by 2030, views the U.S. in decline in part because of its inequality. Oh yeah, like now we've got China lecturing us on our inequality. Yeah, thanks China. You know, with all your Uyghur slaves and everything. Oh, there goes
Well, do you know
myself
what?
getting
Do you
into
know what
China.
inequality is by the first place, Jamie Dimon? It's you bozos, printing oblivious amounts of currency and buying all the assets at near zero interest rates, versus the poor peasants that get like 19% credit card debts, or 1,000%, at the loan
Loan
sharks for
sharks.
payday loans.
Yeah, so
So
they get
that's the
to print.
inequality, you bozo.
So they
Take
get to
that in
print
your
money out
face.
of thin air for nothing, then get to leverage it
Yeah.
out through fractional reserves, and then every time get bailed out from all their friends who run all the regulatory agencies, and then they're the ones who are getting rich off all this. And then
Yeah.
he then out of everybody, JP Morgan, I mean, this crowd knows, and our viewers, I almost said readers, know that the entire Federal Reserve was the plan was hatched on JP Morgan, like the actual JP Morgan's private island, or not island, but it was on Jekyll Island, Georgia, where at their private clubhouse estate, which I did a whole video on this. You guys can go check out on the YouTube channel, or don't check it out there. Actually, check it out on, timandjohnshow.com, which actually technically that would be the LibertyAdvisor.com, because John was in that one. And actually, there was a guest appearance by Mr. G. Griffin in that one, this as well. When I was literally walk and talk, and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm wondering if this is where the room where the Federal Reserve was hatched. And all of a sudden I go outside, and then Gio Griffin's there, and he confirmed that that was the room. Anyways, point being is that JP Morgan, like the actual JP Morgan, was the one who basically set up the whole Federal Reserve System, which was the high-tech economic slavery that we're all living underneath now. Oh, but don't worry, because they have, they participate in, pride parades and have, rainbows and all this other stuff, even though that they're the ones who are basically,
Well,
and then like when
yeah.
Biden, what was it, when Biden had all of his stupid, I guess Biden's stupid, and it's many things come to mind there. But when they had his whole like in Delaware, he had like this whole like command center with all the Jeeps and stuff, and they had a big JP Morgan Chase sign behind him. Like, how fitting is that Biden, like his whole like headquarters, when they're trying to see like who's winning between him and Trump, that he's got JP Morgan Chase behind him in the background.
Sponsored by
Because
JP.
yeah, because they are the ones who are basically part and parcel responsible for more economic inequality than anybody, besides maybe the Federal Reserve that they created. And
Well,
then
the Fed is creating that, but then the commercial banks are just like leveraging that to the hills. They're the ones even forwarding. By
well, then he
far.
goes on to say the
Quality.
Chinese see in America that it's losing ground in technology, infrastructure, and education, a nation torn and crippled by politics as well as racial and income inequality.
It's crippled by banksters.
Why doesn't he
scum.
Why doesn't Diamond just step down and just have some black tranny go run JP Morgan Chase? If JP Morgan want, I mean, I don't know, I got a 65-year-old white guy over there. Why don't they put, I don't see a black woman
Hey,
running
well,
JP
well,
Morgan.
Blankfein. Hey, you gotta give Blankfein credits. He was smart. He got out. He exited before shit hits the fan. I think Jamie Dimon is too cocky to actually like want to quit before he goes down. Before the pitchforks comes for him. I think
Well,
he'll still be there. Like,
Blankfein got
yeah.
replaced by DJ Saul, which is Blankfein was the former
Well,
Goldman Sachs
Solomon.
CEO.
Like think about the name Solomon. Solomon Brothers is used to be one of the biggest banks in the United States. It comes from the
King
family.
Solomon,
Like,
yeah.
yeah. Well, it's
Yeah.
like this. Yeah, it's like these guys have been around, like Morgan and all that. All these guys have been around for forever in the banking system, running the banks in the United States, right? So they've been around, and what you got to understand, like this is not the first time. These morons, these PhDs that are out there, like believing that they, can like make the system so great, and they said that we're gonna fight inequality. Meanwhile, they're the scumbags actually creating pure inequality from their actions. And you got to laugh at them because they don't seem to understand history at all, or they just know it and they're just blatantly ignoring it because they've becoming extremely rich from their behavior of printing currency out of thin air and buying assets everywhere. So it could be either or,
because
right?
America is getting deeper
Yeah.
and deeper into debt. So that basically these ultra, I don't want to call them elite, but parasites are getting the richest. And they're like, oh, we don't know why, 30% of people can't even come up with $400 and that we need to do something about it. Who's we? How much money is JP Morgan going to put into this? We as in, we're all going to get deeper and deeper and deeper into debt. And basically
Well,
the
think
richest people
about
are
it.
going to thrive and prosper off this. While then they get to go gallivant around, talking about how charitable they are when these guys are the biggest scumbag parasites like on earth. And then, I'm even seeing now, and then there's another, Jamie Dimon article over here from CNBS. And what they're saying is Jamie Dimon says economic boom fueled by deficit spending and vaccines easily run into 2023. And John, do you remember when we were at Ernie's house and we're doing that one video by the pool, and the one video idea that I came up with was the case for no more recessions ever. And basically the entire premise of that, which I do, so maybe if Diamond has to go back to find that one to put into the show notes, if you want to write that down for show notes, to find the no more recessions ever video. And basically in that video, what the case that I made was, imagine if you you could have a very bad economic downturn. However, if you then go and decide to spend $5 trillion and now the GDP is higher, and if the definition of a recession is you need to have 2 negative quarters of GDP growth, but then you then just artificially boom the GDP because you go and spend $4 trillion you don't have, then the GDP will then be positive, and you could actually stave off having a very bad technical recession by the actual definition, while the actual economy is in complete shambles. Well, guess what? That didn't take very fucking long to basically have that situation occur. When were you in Phoenix? Was that like September?
Well, that was in December 2019, Tim. So
yeah,
it was.
So we're talking, basically, a few months later, like what, like 4 or 5 months later.
Yeah, it was very fast. Like it came to fruition very quickly.
Yeah, 4 or 5 months later,
March.
exact
March was the bottom, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because we do not have an economic boom. And the thing is, you can't say you have an economic boom funded by deficit spending. It's like saying, like, oh, I'm having a great fucking time over here, driving around Ferraris and Lambos, but meanwhile, I'm $500,000 in debt and have a credit card all the way up to my eyeballs because I'm on a binge spending credit card bender that I can't afford. Like, that's basically what they're saying here, is that Jamie Dimon says there's going to be an economic boom fueled by deficit spending. So it's going to be a boom for the people where all the crony capitalist money goes into. And so a lot of my investment thesis has been, hey, where is this crony capital money going into, and trying to pick those sectors, obviously, notwithstanding, gold and silver and crypto and things like that. But, but there's other areas where there's a lot of crony capitalist money going.
You want to play off of that if you can. Yeah. 100%.
And that's why the election is such a big deal, because I forgot who said it, but basically an election is just an advanced auction of stolen goods. And so when you're at the helm, and then you get I forgot what Biden's new infrastructure deal even is. It's like 1 point is 4 trillion, now it's 3 trillion.
Well, that's right. Yeah, it's like he's all over the place.
And then and then what's the infrastructure spending going to? Oh, building roads, but then they hate oil.
No. Wait. Listen.
Well, no, I know what that's a rhetorical question. I know what it's going to. I read it, but,
okay.
but one of the things it's going to, because they hate oil, but yet like the biggest component of building a fucking road is basically oil and petroleum. And so I was buying my clients oil stocks, when all the July or January 6th siege was going on, because they hate oil, but yet at the same time they want to build new roads, and you need oil to build roads, which is just.
Well, you know what the infrastructure bill is? It was actually a very good observation by Robert Kiyosaki. I listened to a video that he did recently, like just a couple of days ago, and he said that it's basically like they're building bridges to the future, to their Bolshevik system, where they're gonna have like just full centralization and control over energy and infrastructure. That's what they're doing. Like they're building that bridge. He said the bridge to the future, or bridge to nowhere, as we can also call it. We actually have one of those in Manitoba here. It's like literally a bridge that was just built to spend money by the government. So we do have one of those insane. And actually here, the government just put out their budget, and usually like they were trying to do a surplus, and they're going $1.2 billion in deficits right now. Just to give that in comparison, a $300 million deficit is insane here. So like it doesn't sound like much compared to the United States, but again, these deficits, like all of the idiots around the world, all the politicians, everybody's running deficits because that's the new cool thing to do is for the government to boost GDP by basically like having to spend money into existence. The thing is, like with GDP today, what are we measuring as GDP? For example, let's take a look at the United States. Like going and bombing, people over in the Middle East, it's a boost of the GDP. Mass amounts of sick people is good is GDP, right? Like, so what is really good
Spending
GDP
more on
versus
healthcare
yeah,
increases GDP. Spending more on your
yeah.
kids, indoctrination, going to school. That's more. But is the average person better because they're spending more on healthcare, spending more on education, spending more on gasoline, spending more on food, spending more to build homes, spending
Well,
more
look
to buy
at like
big.
back in the day, like my father-in-law here, was telling the story. He had like 3 daughters, right? And he had no problem working a full-time job, having his wife at home with the kids. Like you can't go there today. Like good luck with that unless you
Did it
make
help? Did it help his
big money.
GDP that he had to pay
Yeah.
for 3 weddings? With having 3 daughters.
No, but
I've got two, so I'll be there soon enough.
no, but anyways, it's like you literally like what this money printing has done. That is the inequality in itself. Like it's just the currency printing in itself that creates inequality. It's really you will have like some, if you had a total free market, you'll have people that will do less and people that will do more because you have motivated people and non-motivated people. It's just natural. So you will have that. But with this system is because like it's an interest rate apartheid, as Max Kaiser says. Like you got the guys sitting over here, Buffett and the boys, right, and Bezos, like they're sitting at borrowing like at zero negative interest rates. Meanwhile, peasants, are not financially educated, so they go out and not even borrow money to invest. They borrow money to spend on things that will lose value or things that are totally useless, like vacations and so on, right? So it's like it's totally destructive, the whole system. But like we let this happen over time. That always happens, though. What's interesting, Tim, we could look back like 1,000 years. This is interesting. I read the history of the Chinese empires. 1024, the Song Dynasty created the first paper currency in the world. They backed it by 30% of physical coinage, so copper coinage, I think it was at the time. Well, over time, they decided to start, borrowing money and lend it to people, and they call it the Chinese miracle. 1020. We're talking about in the mid 10. What is that? The 900th century or 1000th century?
I
I
have no
forgot
idea.
how you would say that, but
And
yeah.
then
Anyways, but
boom,
it's way back.
contract for
Like it's
differences.
well, and you go up to the point where they hit peak debt, and then you got to collapse. Like about like basically, like I think it was like 85 years into the whole fund. They hit peak debt, and you can't borrow enough money to any more people. So everybody's just debt saturated. There's no more people to play around with, and so you had to collapse because there was nothing left. But then the government just printed more and created more of these notes, right, into circulation. So it's just like it happens all the time. Even with the first darn paper fiat currency empire, it happened. So why is it not going to happen every single time that they try to do this? It will. But the elites, they only get like 90 years of what is it back to, like it's so it's 110 years now almost, right, Tim? Back to the Federal Reserve, like 118
Yeah.
years back, like a little bit less, but
December 23rd,
118 years
1913.
since
Yep.
that. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and so they only got taught that, and they seem to be like either they're just totally stupid when it comes to like they haven't picked up any history books
And
on
they were
currency and
not
money.
allowed to go purchase
Yeah.
their own debt back then, and they were certainly not allowed to go buy corporate debt. Certainly not allowed to monetize their debt. I mean, what they were doing last year was illegal. You got Janet Yellen, running around, talking about having this global minimum tax, and so now,
Well,
speaking to
Tim,
people about,
yeah. So talking about that, let me talk about that because I'm actually looked into that a long time. Me and Josh, we did a video like holy smokes, this is like almost 5 years ago. But we did a video where the OECD was working on a kind of global tax type of corporation group. And they hadn't named it even at that time. But then a little bit later, I think it was what is the death of money that what's his name, James Rickards came out with,
I had
and in there,
At
yeah,
Easter, I had like a
yeah,
65-year-old lady who I'd never met before who brought up the book, and she didn't like know what it was called, and she was reading it. She's like, "This guy," and she was trying. I'm like, "James Rickards?" She's like, "Yes, I'm reading his book, Death and Money." But it was like this 65-year-old that knew like nothing, that
yeah,
wasn't in this world at all, and was somehow reading the Death and Money. And like
yeah.
I'd never met her before.
So
And
anyways, going back from that, right? So me and Josh discovered that what we talked about back then, before anybody was talking about it, we were talking about also that we thought that the Panama Papers was a false flag to lure people into this tax entity. And sure enough, like right after, you have base erosion and profit shifting. Look it up. It's the OECD that runs it. It has like 100 and something signatories right now. The US is not a signatory yet, by the way, guys. Canada is. But they are looking at like basically sharing tax data between all these countries, Tim, and that's what that is all about. I just wanted to make that point. What Janet Yellen is talking about is base erosion and profit shifting. Canada implemented into their budget back in 2015, by the way. So like Canada is all in, bought in. We're going to share all the tax data with every country in the world. So they're totally commies, and that's what she really is talking about, I think, anyways.
yeah, and what I was gonna say, going back to the Federal Reserve before I lost my train of thought because I was talking about how I didn't have anything written down. Well, it was, sometimes it comes back to bite me in the ass. But for this time, it was George Gannon or Gammon, and I forgot the other guy's name, Robert Barnes, and they were suing the Federal Reserve. We've had people ask me about
Oh yeah,
this. You
yeah.
guys told
So
me about that. And you know what? I'm not really putting any stock into that. Oh, we're gonna sue the Federal Reserve, and so you
yeah,
think
I
you're
know.
gonna sue a bunch of criminals, and a bunch of criminals are gonna give you the data that you need, and then like people thinking like, oh, you can audit the Federal Reserve. Well, where the fuck was not necessarily George Gammon? He seems like an okay guy, but the other guy, Robert Barnes, because I remember him basically, sucking off Trump the entire time he was in there, didn't say one effing word about the Federal Reserve the entire time, and now this is all I think just a big money grab for Robert Barnes, and obviously with George
Oh, it
Gannon
might be, yeah.
throws in
Yeah.
20,000 or 25,000, and that's going to give him probably millions of of publicity. I should say free publicity, but it's all big stunt. Because guess what? Why didn't you do it when you had Trump in there and you had your own person in there? Just now it's a big thing that now all the Democrats are in there. But okay, great. When I was 22 years old, it seemed like a pretty fucking good idea to go audit the Federal Reserve when I didn't know anything. But guess what? I'm not 22 years old anymore. I've been around the block. I know. Sorry, Arthur Diamondhands, not sure for 22, but anyways, nothing against 22-year-olds. But the point of the matter is we're in a different world where, yeah, back then in 2010, it seemed like it was a great idea to audit the Federal Reserve, or 2008. But guess what? Oh, we're going to audit them. What are they going to do? Give you their bullshit data? Or they're going to give you a different set of books? Or you think they're honestly going to tell you what they're going to do? Or they could tell you, they could literally be on C-SPAN through a hearing where that one guy, I forgot his name, Alan, not Alan Greenspan, like Alan Keyes, I think his name was, something like that, where he was, grilling them, and they had the Inspector General, the Fed, out there and saying that they were missing, they couldn't account for like $6 trillion or $9 trillion. It was some staggering number. And they could just be out there on C-SPAN like, yep, we're the Inspector General of the Fed, and we don't know what we did with $9 trillion. And nobody cared. And so what? They're going to be out there and you can be out there saying, hey, we're funding Saudi Arabia, doing this and running illegal scams of that and dropping gold into the Iraqi airlift of evil and doing this and that and the other thing. And no one is going to care. And they're probably not even giving the real data. And the whole thing is, it's about ending the Federal Reserve, ignoring the Federal Reserve, creating a whole other system. And so all this does is keep people in this like little merry-go-round, loop-de-loop of fear. So yeah, I'm glad somebody's out there suing the Federal Reserve, but guess it's all way. I think it's just a big publicity stunt to help enrich these two guys, and I don't really think it's actually going to do anything. And I think it just then gets everybody in that mindset like, oh, I can just sit back and do nothing because someone's going to go after the Federal Reserve, and it's just, I think it's all just a self-serving bullshit, and I don't really put any stock into it. And if Robert Burns was really serious, he would have fucking done something when Trump was in office instead of sucking him off the entire time he was in there with him and Alex Jones. So that guy, he's Alex Jones' personal lawyer, and was basically did jack shit the entire time about the Federal Reserve.
Okay, here we go. Okay, I get it. Interesting. Sorry, buddy. That's
what did you get?
I did not know it was Alex Jones's personal lawyer. Sorry.
Yeah, no. Zach, so that's where I know him from, is that he was always on Alex's show. When I would spot check it every now and then, because there is still a lot of stuff that does come out from Alex every now and then if you get through all the. I mean, I don't listen to him anymore. It's like way too much BS, and it's way became like the Trump 24/7 show. But it's just, I don't put any stock into this whatsoever, because we're gonna hold our hats on an actual we're gonna sue them and we're gonna win. Like did you not realize what happened with this whole it doesn't matter, like when you're in their corrupt courts and their corrupt system with their corrupt judges and their corrupt playing field with their corrupt money, and you're gonna it's not gonna work. So Robert Burns is gonna end up with a whole bunch of money from suing the Federal Reserve and getting a whole bunch of publicity and being there with his nice Shure mic and his nice fancy bow tie and everything, or I don't know if he wears bow ties, and looking all proper. But guess what? It's not going to go anywhere. It's all a distraction. It's a big waste of time. And everyone that's talking about it, you're just wasting your time. You might as well be.
Well, yeah. And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no. And so guess what? Yeah, when I was 22 and didn't know anything, and I was just starting to wake up about the Federal Reserve. I was a big audit the Fed guy. And then even I think up until 2016, I was telling Ernie about audit the Fed, and his eyes was rolling in the back of the head. Then it became like even ending the Fed. Like, I don't care about the Fed's going to end themselves. Like, why am I going to waste my time to go end them? It should be spreading the knowledge about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, which I guess now, I did see some ads where Alex was promoting Bitcoin because he's on to Max Kaiser's, got him all into Bitcoin, and now, is on like promoting the Swan Bitcoin type stuff. So what you got pulled up for us now, John?
Talking about how the Fed is going to end itself, Tim. Here we go. Remember you sending me an article, I think it was a zero.
Well, do you want to let the people who are listening at home knowing what we're looking at right now? So if they're listening to the podcast.
Just before we're actually looking at that chart, so Tim sent me an article. The dollar share of global reserve tumbles to low since 1995 as yuan hits all-time high. That's basically what Tim was sending me. It's the new IMF report. And I did data. I pulled all the data that IMF had through history. This is actually a paid report that I have called Global Risk Report 2020 or something. I did it in 2019. But it's pretty much like a good thing to even get now. But this is interesting. So back in the 80s, though, look at this, like when the real big hits to the dollar comes, it basically comes when you have the financial crisis, right? Like it was back in the 80s. So the end of, like the back end of when silver and gold hit the record highs, basically. Well, the silver just, went through the roof, and also gold hit the record high at the time. You could see here it was all the way down at 47.14% was actually the control of it. But you had actually the Deutsche Mark still in play back in the day. So and you also had it was interesting, the euro was there, but the Germany had still not joined the European Union. So like the actual, sorry, not the European Union, they joined the Eurozone. So the actual there's Yoshi. So join the zone. But what is interesting here, so suddenly, the US right after, they got, fixed that, sorted that out, and they were back on track again. dollar was very strong, as it shows there. It's 1995, right? It said in the report it was 71.13% of global trade, which is substantial. That's over three quarter of the whole like global economy of trade. But then this is only goes back to 2017, and in 2017 it was at 61.74. Now, this article here, Tim, I didn't look quite at what's the number? Like, does it show the number at all? Like what it is currently? Yeah, here we go. So it's like actually below 60% right now. Like it's what is this? Like probably like
And what did
50,
it peak? What did it peak out on there?
59.
It's hard for me to read that.
Oh, here it's 72%. Yeah. So it was peaking out at 72. So if we go back to my report, hold on here, you could actually see that it peaked out at what was it, 72? Yeah. So back in the 90s, right? Like it peaked out at like 71, right? So it's very interesting. Like the US is slowly like losing its luster again. It's back towards that time, like actually in the 60s, before they actually devalued. Look at 70s there, Tim. It was 84, but as soon as they devalued, people started to look for, like the dollar is garbage, basically, back in the early 70s, right? So you could see it dropped severely to one of its lowest, and then at the worst, it was all the way down to 47.14. But now, of course, now it's slowly making its way back down like it's in the 50s right now, like 59 something, right? And so it's definitely losing a lot of luster, and it's almost down to 50% of the global economic trade. So it's really severely reduced from the peak of 72%, Tim, which is just a showing of times. You could see kind of the trend going downwards there. It was a little bit worse back, like in the aftermath of the financial crisis. But now we haven't really like they papered over everything. But I think we'll see like some serious crisis in the US dollar like coming in the next 10 years. I think there might be something else being a world reserve currency. It was funny I think it was 2014, I wrote an article if it was going to be the IMF SDR or a Bitcoin that was going to be the new world reserve currency. What do you guys think on
That's
that?
that's a perfect segue to Peter Thiel. A lot of you probably know who Peter Thiel was. He's Bilderberg member, but also was on Facebook's board. Was one of the PayPal co-founders, I believe, as well. And so let me make sure I share the sound. This is from a recent like Nixon seminar. I had it for.
You got your sexy voice going there. You're like your sexy
Yeah.
manly voice right now too.
Yeah, speaking of sound.
What
Sorry,
is
I'm
going?
just making fun of you, Tim.
Is it still doing the sexy voice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Son of. I tried sharing the clip, and of course, I've got my. Is it still doing this?
I think you should just go with it, Tim. You just keep on going here. It's good times. The ladies will love it.
Did Yoshi
Well,
bump something?
Well, Yoshi just ran out of the room, so.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm gonna screw up my dad's.
All right.
dinner.
Okay. My gigabyte internet connections decided it would finally work now, so here we go.
Oh, it's fine. Let's go out of here.
US
Let's see what
having
this.
reserve currency, because it gives us a lot of leverage over Iranian oil supply chains and all sorts of things like that. They don't want the renminbi to become a reserve currency, because then you have to open your capital account and you have to do all sorts of things that they really don't want to do. I think the euro, you could think of as was in part a Chinese weapon against the dollar. It didn't, the last decade, it hasn't quite worked out that way, but that was, China would have liked to see two reserve currencies like the euro. And even though I'm sort of a pro-crypto, pro-Bitcoin maximalist person, I do wonder whether at this point Bitcoin is also should also be thought in part as a Chinese financial weapon against the U.S., where it threatens fiat money, but it especially threatens the U.S. Dollar, and China wants to do things to weaken it. So it's sort of China is long Bitcoin, and perhaps from a geopolitical perspective, the U.S. should be a little bit be asking some tougher questions about exactly how that works. But some internal stable coin in China, that's not a real cryptocurrency. That's just some sort of totalitarian measuring device.
And totalitarian.
I like, yeah, and that's what central bank digital currencies is. Thank you, Peter Thiel. I like that at the end there.
Is my voice still all messed up over here?
Yes, it
Uh,
is. It's fine. Just
All right, I
go
might
with it.
need to.
We'll go with it.
I might try to just disconnect my mic and go back on next time you guys are talking. But anyways, yeah, with Peter Thiel, you know, how about you guys, John? I'll let you make some comments on this, and then I'll try to fix my mic.
Yeah, no, for sure. Peter Thiel, you know, he was actually confronted. Who was it that confronted him? Now it was my buddy Dan Dix that went to the Bilderberg, like one of the latest that you could actually travel, and Peter Thiel was there, you know, hanging out with the elites and just talking it out. He's, you know, a total elitist, and he's, you know, totally pro the United States empire because it's a massive part of it with his own empire, you know, that he has. He's one of the richest guys in the world. So he doesn't want to give up what the United States has of power as a reserve currency because it would be devastating to, you know, not have that power to extort people and destroy people's livelihoods and countries and, you know, sanction countries as well. Yeah, Eric, this is interesting, Ted. So this is a thing, though. I want to have maybe Arthur Diamondhands' thoughts on this because he's a little bit more into
First
understanding
explain what it
Bitcoin
is.
there. Yeah,
First explain what it is for people
yeah,
who are listening and don't know what we're looking at right now.
yeah. So what we're seeing here is actually what's called the hash rate. So that's the total
Hashish.
actually hashish. The total processing power of crypto. But the thing is here, Tim, and maybe Arthur could give us some insights on it. What my thoughts are, because there's a lot of mining pools that are based out of China. It doesn't mean like they are also owned a lot of times by other miners that are part of these pools. Is that correct, Arthur? Like, am I correct to say that it's not necessarily just China, you know, these big mining pools, or is that
China.
totally wrong?
Yeah, when you say China, you mean like state China.
Yeah,
Like,
that's what they mean anyway. Yeah.
yeah, they could be, but I don't think that's the whole truth. I think they're that like it's a mining pool. Anyone can
Yeah,
sign
exactly.
on and commit their hash power. Because I hear this argument made quite a bit, and I just don't think it's that simple just to look at the graph and say, oh, well, China's got 65% of the hash power. I'm hearing that they have like a lot of heavy capital controls. And one way of getting money or value outside of the country is to mine. Uh, and like if they're
Yeah,
restricting
100%.
exchanges and restricting access, that's a way like that's how they're able to do it in China if they're an oppressed person and they're trying to, you know, have a little bit outside of Chinese control that they can mine and get a few satoshis that the pool pays them. So uh you know, how much of it is that? You know, I look at that as a good thing. That those are oppressed citizens that are trying to escape their nation's capital controls, and someone's mistakenly trying to say that that's China controlling all the hash power. So yeah, I think it's something to look into.
Yeah, no,
You know what?
I think it's a great
Yeah,
observation. And also, is my
yeah.
mic still all messed up? I don't know.
You're good.
No,
Okay.
actually, you're good now. Yeah, you're good now.
I like disconnected it and reconnected it, but okay. It's funny
Well,
how that works.
actually, yeah,
But
actually, I wanted to share this too. Just sorry, Tim, to interrupt you there, but this is what he's talking about there. As you can see, there's different mining pools. But as he says, you know, and I've been saying this as well. I totally agree with you, actually, because you could join with a miner. You know, one of my buddies, he mines in one of these pools. So he's a part of that, but his miner is in Ottawa, Canada. Right, so it's not necessarily in China. It's a Chinese mining pool, but so it's very distorted the way they're trying to project it. And that's just my point of view. I might be wrong, but I don't totally think I am. I think we're onto something here with, you know, what we just said. We're talking about it, Tim. So go ahead.
speaking of miners, now we're going to talk about Matt Gates. No, just kidding. But anyways, with the hash distribution or with the hash, I mean, like you were saying, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's like the state of China doing it. It could be
Oh,
Chinese
100%.
citizens, or it could be people in America who are just in pools that are based out of China. And also,
Yeah,
China
because
doesn't
the
have,
bigger the pool, the faster you could get bitcoins,
and
basically.
Well,
if
Yeah.
I have another question for so what can they do with it? Like adding hash to the network, it's just just providing more hashes.
Well, you're increasing the likelihood of you winning the next block. So I mean, it's just sort of like who's ever got the the biggest,
But
baddest.
also the algorithm though, Arthur, like the algorithm will actually like change the difficulty though. The more hashing
Sure,
power,
right.
the less hashing power, like it adapts,
Like,
right?
So
So
every
it's
2
not as
weeks.
like it's not
right.
that easy. Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm saying it's working perfectly as intended. It's not a
Yeah.
problem. Like that's like, what's the concern that that all this hash is coming out of China, or it's being
Well, the concern
reported?
is that if you're a globalist based out of America, relying on the U.S. hegemony of being able to weaponize the dollar and the SWIFT system against your adversaries, and all of a sudden, if
Yeah.
other if something supplants the U.S. dollar, not if, but when it supplants the U.S. dollar, I mean, you can go to page 74 of Klaus Schwab's book called "The Fate of the U.S. Dollar," or in that Great Reset book, where it actually then goes on to say that basically the dollar being able to be the world reserve currency is an exorbitant privilege, and basically and they use that in quotes, and
Right.
eventually that system is going to end. And the other thing is, like, if let's say it cost, I don't know what, I'm just making this up right now, but like back in at one point back in 20 early 2018, late 2017, I mean, there was a tiny brief period where let's say it cost $19,000 to mine a Bitcoin that you'd get for 17,000. So you could buy it in the open market for 17. It would cost 18 or 19 to mine it. So why would you do that? Well, if you're in China and you don't care about, and every time I say China, I feel like saying like Trump's China. So every time you're in China and you realize that, if you're willing to lose $2,000 of Bitcoin because you're able to then get your money, in an unconfiscatable form, to then be able to get it potentially out of the country and be able to move it and do other things with it. And so if you're willing to then mine at a loss, there's people in America who don't want to mine at a loss. And also there's more environmental regulations going on in America. So if you do mining over in China, it could be American people that could be funding people in China to go mine over there where there's not any environmental regulations. So that's why all these, Kyoto protocols and Paris climate change agreements, where it's like, oh, China gets to keep doubling all their shit until 2060, and the rest of us need to just go on complete clampdown, when China's the one that's increasing their pollution and stuff more than anybody. Not to sound like some greenie, because obviously anyone that's been listening to the show for any substantial period of time knows that's not the case. But the thing, and actually, you know what, I'm not even going to say that, because a lot of us live way more sustainable lifestyles than a lot of the people who are the so-called green people, where all my friends are trying to create homesteads, trying to be sustainable, trying to go off grid, trying to collect rainwater, trying to do like solar power. And it's all the assholes that think that we're like the devil, who are sitting in their high rises in New York City polluting more than anybody. Sorry, that's a whole nother topic that I didn't mean to really get into. But yeah, I think what Peter Thiel's also saying, and the article goes on to say, is that the U.S. should be buying Bitcoin, because guess what? If China, I'm sure China does have some, the state of China probably has some, interest in this. They probably have Bitcoin themselves, whereas America, we're a bunch of fucking that went and
Yeah.
probably need to
Well,
go
the
probably need to go
unknown.
edit that part out for the YouTube part. But
Yeah.
we're a bunch of idiots
Yeah.
that want to let's go auction off Ross Ulbricht's Bitcoin for whatever it was way back when, which would have been I mean, I'm sure Tim Draper's very happy that they decided to auction all that stuff off, because we're the idiots going and selling off like basically one of the most valuable assets you could possibly have, while China, I'm sure, is probably, I shouldn't say I'm sure, I'm not sure, but I have a inkling that they're probably going and acquiring lots of Bitcoin. And the article also goes on to say, and Peter Thiel sort of mentions this, that China doesn't want to start be the world reserve currency, because there is something called Tiffin's dilemma, or maybe it's Triffin's dilemma.
Triffin's dilemma.
So Robert Triffin was an economist back, which I can't even believe I even remember this stuff, back in the 40s, who I believe was theorizing that whoever is the world reserve currency has to create enough basically deficits to be able to have enough liquidity in the system, but then eventually those deficits would eventually create such
Well,
problems
they
that the
spend it.
currency would
They ship.
collapse.
They ship their currency
Yeah.
outwards, right, Tim? That's basically what it is. You got to remember, like back in even in the early U.S. history, Virginia did a similar thing what the United States have done now, where they actually got all the shipping over from Europe, and then they actually spread their currency at the time. I forgot what it was called, but all over the U.S. But at one point, everybody said like, well, you created so much of it now that it's even worthless where we are. So like it was the same kind of U.S. principle that the U.S. have done now with shipping their currency overseas. you get to the point where you also will have inflation, and like you will see the physical devaluation quite heavily, overseas as well. And I think that's where we're at, Tim.
Was that called like the company script or something? I don't know if it was if we're talking about like the Virginia
I
company or Virginia.
have a book that I have it in, like it's the world, like the history of all of fiat paper money. But it was very interesting and compelling history because it kind of tells like where the United States is now. I think it was back in the 1800s, early 1800s or late 1700s, like after the U.S. got their freedom. The
Yeah, but one of the
1776 there.
things that going
But it
on
was
to like what Peter Thiel was saying is that they actually, I mean, China now has, basically effectively sort of rolled out their digital currency and, about to go roll it out completely. And, and it's important to note this is not the digital yuan is not peer-to-peer currency, but rather requires use of officially regulated financial intermediation. The digital yuan does not have a market-based valuation where it's independent of the old version of the currency. They're basically it's tied together. Digital yuan does not have an algorithmic protocol dictating the production of new assets. Basically it's all command and control and like, hey, guess what? You weren't smiling when Xi was on TV and you weren't, Sieg heiling enough,
It's a
to the
part of
state
the
government. So
social
boom, we're
sesame
gonna
credit system.
yeah,
Exactly.
like we're gonna go and we're gonna cut you off. And Peter Thiel was correct, calling it a totalitarian measuring device. But we do see some people, GOP lawmakers, that are saying that urges architects of the digital dollar. Now they're talking about the U.S. We're switching from the yuan to the USSA digital dollar here to consider risk to civil liberties. And and everyone can see, I mean, let's just say everyone, because unfortunately most people can't see this. All of the people that we know and follow us and are listening to this right now and watching this know that this is a system that's going to be used against us, and that what they want to do is they want to catch terrorists and money launderers and tax evaders. But no, that's not what they want to do. They want to. That's what they say they want to do. But what they really want to do is get people to self-censor, to not say anything. If they know that saying something, get their money taken away. If they know that, hey, everything is digital, and so now we're going to stop even telling you what the M1 is, and we're going to go and have negative interest rates, or we're not going to have negative interest rates, but we're going to have, we're going to pay you 0.02% in a savings account, but then we're going to have 10% inflation. And by the way, we have you by the balls because, you can't get out. And if you go and you try to get out through gold or silver or crypto, we're going to know that you did it. And they basically already know now anyways, but there is, at least a tiny semblance of, sort of escape hatch. And so once they get everybody on the US digital dollar, there is going to be no more escape hatch. In my opinion, that's when, things like certain privacy coins are at that point going to go skyrocketing because you're not going to be able to get them. Initially, you'll probably see, maybe even Bitcoin even go down because of all this. But then eventually, if it's harder to get and people want it and there's a clampdown, then it could go up. And so there's a part of me that thinks that maybe Bitcoin was rolled out by the elite to then make it seem sexy and cool. And then all of a sudden, push this digital dollar. But at the same point, maybe Bitcoin got away from them, because there is some evidence to suggest that maybe it was the NSA. There is that white paper that they did in 1997 called something like electronic cat. I mean, it's very similar to the Satoshi white paper, if anyone that goes back and actually reads that. And yeah, it's just that. I mean, if there's one thing that I could possibly warn against, if I could pick one thing, it would be central bank digital currencies, digital dollar, and having all of your cash to the point where it's digital. Because I've heard people even say who don't know any better, like, oh yeah, I can't wait till everything is digital and I don't need to carry around any money
Well,
anymore. It's gonna be great.
me and Josh have been talking. Like I talked about that since 2015. Basically, I was all over it because what's his name? Ken Rogoff came out with a book, The Curse of Cash, where he basically talked about how we're going to go into digital. But what is more important that people not talk about a lot is why are we moving towards the digital currency? It's of course the
Because there's
tracking,
coronavirus on
but
our cash, Josh, or not Josh, but John, of
well,
course.
that actually
There's
that
coronavirus on it.
is a chapter in the book. It's a chapter in the book, Tim. Curse of Cash. You'll see a chapter on it being germ-filled the physical currency. But what is the major reason? There's two major reasons for why they want to go cashless. One is tax collection, and then the second one is to go negative interest rates to try to manipulate the current system from completely failing. They can't go, too much negative, but they need they need the central bank digital currency, and they need to have people in a digital strong, basically prison, or else people could fled to crypto, to gold, to cash that they did in Switzerland when they went to the negative, right? But they are looking at, like, this is insane to him. In that book, he was talking about -5 to -10% interest rate.
But
Like
you
this
don't even
this
have
the
to necessarily
former
go negative.
chief economist for the IMF.
The thing is, that's more of a in your face, and people at that point would know it.
Well, it's
And
a tax on your
but the thing is,
savings to
if
get
you have
velocity going. Yeah.
it's easier for them to pay the slaves 1% and then inflate it by 10%, and you lose 9% rather than them have a negative 9%. So that's the more stealth version of that. And there was a Zero Edge article I just saw where it's from today, where it's talking about the 20-year Treasury bond surge, and it's basically saying that something that the Fed, one of their announcements, made it sound like they're going to start buying 20-year Treasury bonds. Like there was, and then it
They
calmed
have
right
been
before that.
already. Let me just break that news. Like, I think we broke it like way back. They've been
Yeah.
buying 20 and 30-year bonds for a while in outright
Well, they didn't
purchases.
have
So
20-year bonds until
that's just
recently, but
pure
yeah.
bullshit.
So
Well, this is like, Tim, remember back when they did the whole repo thing? I broke with Ernie. I went on a show and we talked about their current outright purchases because they were doing damn treasury purchases at the time. They were actually doing it while they were doing the term repos and the repos. They actually were doing QE way before. Way before. Like, these scumbags are just lying straight to our faces. And their data is just like literally showing it to us that they're lying.
yeah, and here's a statement. As a result, we plan to make minor technical adjustments to our purchase sectors and increase the frequency at which we update purchase allocations to remain roughly proportional to the outstanding supply of nominal coupons and tips. We expect to announce these as part of a normal purchase calendar release in coming months. And that was, of course, 2 years ago when they said they're going to be selling $50 billion of bonds a month. And only if people like you and me, before we even started Tim and John show, but I was coming out and saying, there's no way they could possibly do this. Here's all the reasons why they couldn't do this. I had an 8-minute
Here.
podcast called The Perfect Storm is Brewing, where I lamented that the entire time. But all right, what do you got for us?
All right, here. I got evidence. I got proof. Do you see this? Like, this is the you see this treasury purchase?
But
Like right there on the screen?
let people know who are listening right now who don't
Yeah,
know.
so what we're looking at here is actually we're on the New York Fed's website. This is under dash markets dash desk operations treasury sectors outright purchases, and here you can actually see an outright purchase coupon purchase, and as you can see here, the maturity rate is 41 to 51. Well, how many years is that, Tim? Oh, that's 20, 30 years. Like, they're buying it. They're not buying a ton yet, but they are buying it. Like, here, it's evidence right here. Let's go further down. It's not here, like
And
they're
that's the
buying a
thing
whole
that's
bunch of short
that's
term,
so
right?
disheartening. It's like
Yeah.
literally
Oh,
on their
here
own
we go.
website.
Another one. Yeah. Like,
Literally
it's
on their
right
own
here.
website.
Here,
So
another one. Yeah, they're buying it right now, but they're not buying it, like, as you can see, the shorter term debt, they're buying it in way higher amounts, but they're still buying it.
And they can't
That's
even
what I
come
want.
out and say we're buying it. They have to act like a
Yeah.
bunch of douchebags. Like, as a result, we plan to make minor technical adjustments to the purchase sector. Instead of saying we're buying 20 and 30-year bonds, bitches, instead they come out and say that all this bullshit to basically, make it sound like super boring so everyone doesn't pay attention and doesn't listen to any of this stuff. And I've actually moved off of the caffeinated seltzer water to now this regular unfiltered, non-caffeinated strawberry seltzer water, so I can calm down a little bit over here, because it's just like all this stuff is like you can read this, and then another person is getting my blood boiling over here. Is like the last thing I wanted to share was, but I guess if you got anything more on this front, because this would be shifting gears towards vaccines and Joe
Well,
Scarborough.
yeah, I think that's basically about it. Like, they've been buying exorbitant amounts. Actually, there was a record over the last like half year in mortgage-backed securities purchase the other day as well. Actually, you can find all my data if you go to my website, and you can find. Let me just share it with people, because it's if people are geeks like us, they want to have access to as much. I don't have the pure details on the actual terms and everything. Here I show the repo, so you can actually see there's been no repo purchases lately. No term repos have happened for a very long time.
Well, I mean, if you don't
But
need it, if you're not required to keep cash in the bank anymore, I mean, is there like even like a technical reason why they would have to do repos if they don't really need to have reserve requirements?
well, they're doing reverse repos actually right now. Here, actually, like, what I'll do here is I'll show
Sounds
you
like
guys
it's like
how.
I need a commercial. Like, I'm Wilford Brimley, and I can do a reverse
Look at here.
repo, and I have diabetes.
Here you go. This is a reverse repo at a fixed rate. So it's basically them buying back their own bonds that they sold to the Fed. So the bank is buying it back again here. So as you can see, it's 20 point.
Arthur Diamondhands,
Yeah.
do you remember when we started this and John said he didn't have that many tabs open? And like literally, I think anyone that's viewing this shows that he has like 80 tabs open. He probably has like other screens too that also have like probably 80 tabs open a piece. He's like, I just have a couple articles, 80. So surprised you.
Actually, yeah, my articles are actually over at the other one, which has
different
like
screen. Okay,
probably
that's
like
just the
30
data.
other
That's
ones.
just the
It's
data.
not as bad as that one. That's my main one.
Okay, I don't know who's
But no,
worse.
it's
you or
it's
Josh.
yeah, no,
when it
but it's
comes to how
interesting.
many
It's again like treasury purchases to and mortgage-backed securities are like pretty close to record highs, Tim. I just want to like mention that to people. Like there's still a lot of pressure on the markets, even though that a lot of these programs that they use through the exchange stabilization fund, like the let's see
That's
now,
like
what
your
is the name? So commercial paper
IPFS.
funding.
So every time Ernie says
Yeah.
IPFS, we take a drink, and every
I
time
say
John says
ESF.
we take a drink.
Yeah.
So here's some seltzer water to you.
Exactly.
You couldn't do one show without mentioning the ESF. I think every single time. I don't think you've mentioned Canada or Norway yet either. So
Oh, I have not. Yeah.
it's probably the
Well,
longest you've
should
ever
we
gone without
talk
mentioning
about
Norway
Canada?
or Manitoba or I mentioned Canada. I made a Canada reference with the hockey stick graph.
Well, it's the reason though is because I've been geeking out on the data. So like I just like I'm too focused on the data. I'm like autistic when it comes to
Yeah,
economic
we're
data.
all
I have too much focus.
highly functioning people on the spectrum over here, probably. But we have
Yeah.
the last thing I wanted to. The only thing I wanted to cover today was really the M1 thing because I thought that was nuts. But now we have Joe Scarborough, and of course he's up there with Mika Brzezinski, his wife. And Mika Brzezinski, for those who don't know, is the daughter of Zbigniew Brzezinski, who was one of the top globalists. He's now dead, so fuck that guy. But anyways, Zbigniew Brzezinski, he wrote the Grand Chessboard. He was one of the trilateral.
It's like it's like a Kissinger guy.
Like one of the top, guy that's like up there with like Kissinger, complete scumbag.
Rockefeller,
And, I'm sure Mika got this job just on her own merits. I remember I was actually the guy that told Ernie this. I'm like, that's Zbigniew Brzezinski's daughter. And he like had no idea that was Zbigniew Brzezinski's daughter.
That's right. Yeah,
It was up there, and I'm like, yeah, that's Zbigniew Brzezinski's daughter. And so he's like one of the top architects. He's dead now, but like one of the top architects of all this stuff. He also had a quote that said something like, it used to be far easier to control 1 million people than to kill 1 million people, and now it's far easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people. And talking about the grand chessboard of why he needs, and part of the chessboard, you want to control the middle of the chessboard, which is the Middle East. And so that's why. So that's part of like if you can geographically control the Middle East, and you can launch sort of like different strategic attacks and proxy wars all across the world. Anyways, that's a whole nother subject. That basically that this piece of crap comes from a whole line of a piece of shit family with the Brzezinskis, and I've got nothing nice to say about the Brzezinskis, as you guys know. But anyways, here is her basically murder husband, Joe Scarborough, who had a intern that was magically found dead in his office. And then Trump actually tweeted about this and basically alluded to the fact that he killed her. So I do, there are some things that I do miss from Trump, and so I just love when he said that. And some of the if we're gonna have bread and circuses, at least we can make this funny. And so
you gotta have it entertaining. Well, now it's like more of like a seat.
More of our freedoms got taken than ever before.
I guess he's entertaining when he talks. Like Biden is entertaining when he talks, but otherwise, like when he's just like shutting up, it's no fun at all. Like he needs to be out there speaking to the public on a daily basis.
Yeah, so I watched this a few days ago, and just I'll just watch this again without getting pissed off. But I mean, I will.
Incredible. The stupidity is incredible. They've actually, they've taken a country where we've had people throughout the generations, fight for liberty and fight for freedom of speech, the freedom to go to the church you want to go to, or the synagogue you want to, or the mosque, or not to go at all, right? The freedom of assembly, all of these freedoms, these idiots are now saying, I have the right to be stupid as hell. I have the right to believe stupid as hell people on Facebook. I have the right to believe in conspiracy theories and make you and your family and everybody around you in danger, put you in danger. Okay, you do. You really do. So go ahead, like I said, go ahead, go live in your basement, all right? But it's not going to stop us.
It's just no dead interns in my basement,
have
Scarborough.
The guy that we had in the White House over the past 4 years, that number you're seeing on the screen, according to people who worked for him and helped run his task force, that number on the screen would have been a lot lower. We would have saved more lives, most likely, than people who died in Vietnam. We would have saved more lives, most likely, than American soldiers who died in combat in World War I. We would have saved so many lives. But no, you had to be stupid. You had to believe the stupid guy. I don't know. I can't help you. Nobody can help you, right? If you still believe in God, maybe get on your knees and pray and ask why it is that your thought system, that your belief system has been so corrupted that you follow QAnon, that you follow conspiracy theories, that you believe liars on Facebook, instead of believing the truth. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the... When did that stop mattering to you? When did the truth stop mattering to you so much that you were willing to put other people's lives at risk? Greater love hath no man than to lay down his life for his brother. You're doing the opposite. You're going out of your way to kill people.
People that don't get vaccinated. Yes, it's saying that people that don't get vaccinated, that we all live in basements and are cave dwellers, and that we're going to be responsible for people dying.
Hey, you know what? Okay, so
I mean, I sort of agree with him on the QAnon part.
My blood is boiling.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you can tell.
But let me state something to you, Scarborough. You scumbag. You know, let's talk about. So there's about 6,000 people that have died of the vaccine right now, and there's only in Europe there's about 3,600 has been reported. They only say 10% gets reported. In the
2
US,
weeks ago
there's
was
3,000 plus.
3,942. So yeah, in just in Europe.
Yeah,
so it's gonna be higher than that.
Yeah, exactly. So, but anyways, so they are talking like, remember when COVID came out? It's like, you don't care about people, you know, that they're dying, you know, because a few people are starting to die from the
there's
virus,
gonna be 2 to 5% of everyone
Yeah.
was going to die initially this time last year.
Yeah,
So-
well, they were using that against that, and nobody is talking about deaths. Nobody's dying from the vaccine. Here in Canada, everybody's fine. There's no blood clots even in Canada. Every other country has tons of blood clots from AstraZeneca. You know, these morons are basically like, it's like turning on, and you like literally think that you walked like you're in the Matrix. You know, you being Neo, like suddenly getting, you know, like dialed in and going into the Matrix where all the peasants are. Remember, you know, the scenes that he goes in and then he got to call a phone to get back to the ship again. You know, that's what you feel like when you're watching this, because all the data is there. All the data from the bears, like the vaccine adverse reaction events, like all these different organizations in Europe that are reporting on vaccine injury in the UK. I looked at the numbers, Tim. AstraZeneca was 346 reported deaths from AstraZeneca, 246 something from Pfizer. Nobody's reporting on it. And in Norway, you know, they ignored that 3 people died from the blood clots that they got. So there's nobody died from the AstraZeneca vaccine. There's got blood clots, you know, like horrible blood clots that, but yeah, they died from it. So actually the adverse reaction is death. You know, how about we talk about that, right, Tim? That, you know, actually the adverse reaction is death. You know, and yeah, oh, here we go. Yeah, and I heard about the.
Oh, this guy,
this
you know,
guy
is like the slave of the century over here.
best, yeah.
Man's skin peeled off in rare reaction to Johnson & Johnson COVID vaccine, and somewhere
And we got to warn. We got to warn. This is disgusting.
Oh, this is very gross to look at. It's like I began to feel a little discomfort in my armpit, and then a few days later, I began to get an itchy rash, and then after that, I began to swell. My skin turned red, and yeah, it looks like the skin is burning off. And somewhere on here, he goes on to say that, you know, it's that he's very thankful. I forgot where exactly where it says, but somewhere in here that I just pulled up this second. He goes on to say, like, I'm very thankful and grateful to still have received the vaccine and be in such a great country where I could do this. This article
Tim, you
doesn't
know
have
what
that.
we need to play at the end of this? Like, this is what I'm feeling right now. You know, have you ever watched the like Hot Fuzz guys? Have you ever watched that? This is exactly what like mainstream media and everybody else is sounding like right now, and what they are.
The greater good Hot Fuzz?
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Ashamed. calling yourself a community that cares.
Oh, but we do care, Nicholas.
It's all about the greater good.
How can this be for the greater good? How can this be for the greater good? Shut it!
Okay, so maybe you guys could find that one on the
Yeah.
timandjohnshow.com,
Please,
but maybe not on
like
YouTube.
this is it. Like, come on, like tell me, guys. Like, isn't that like so fitting?
But anyways, John, is there anything you want to promote? We got the economictruth.org, and what do you got going on over there?
Well, actually, yeah, that's the economictruth.org.
The Matrix, speaking of the
and
Matrix
then,
server, Discord.
Oh yeah, so we're actually working on. So for people that are interested on our Discord and that are also interested in joining us, I actually set up a with our friend Matthew Reimer. You know Matthew Reimer, Tim. He's working with like guys like James Corbett and others, to help them with their content moving it over. So he actually helped me set up a what's called a Matrix server with an Element app that you could use on you could use it as a desktop computer app. Like it's like basically like Signal, but it's a point-to-point encrypted chat service. So it's pretty cool, and it's actually on a private server that we have bought, and it's running at a location that is not run by Amazon or any of the big guys at all. So we are talking about, like, we probably will
It's
move over
located
there,
at 427 this street
yeah.
to go drone. No, it's not giving any more information.
Yeah, good luck finding it. Good luck finding it.
Good luck
Anyways,
finding it in my
yeah,
basement.
so-
No, just kidding. No. I don't even have a
No,
basement.
I wouldn't. I got way too bad internet to put anything in my basement, so don't even come here. Get
Yeah,
lost.
don't even
Yeah.
try.
Anyways, but yeah, it's our Elements. So that's our new chat group that we're just launching. Probably we're gonna do a full launch by May. I'm hoping. We're just doing some weeks. So Tim and Mr. Arthur Diamondhands is going to be on the server right away. We're going to test it out a bit and put our feelers out and how it works and all that fun stuff. But I do think we have, it's not a full replacement of our Discord server, but it's very close. Like it's quite close, and it's actually like way better when it comes to privacy for what we have at Discord, because we constantly get bots in there that think we're like Trump supporters, which is hilarious. So
The other thing is, I mean, I don't really want to build up anything that they can just take down. And so
No.
obviously they can take down YouTube. I mean, I let John post one video without me pre-approving it, and then they go and they took that one down. So Mr. Naughty
yeah,
Boy
I
over
fucked
there.
up.
But the
It was
thing is,
me.
then
My
even
fault.
that's why I'm off Facebook now. I'm off Twitter.
Yeah.
Actually, I haven't even posted on Flow. I've been like literally just on like a complete social media detox, and it's been actually been great. And I've like never been almost more successful of like things I've been able to get done and things I'm doing, and happiness not being on any of the social media. And also it gives me more of like a clear. So basically, you can follow me nowhere.
A
is what
mental
I'm telling
clarity.
everybody. Mental clarity. But you can follow me on float.app/LibertyAdvisor. Go to timandjohnshow.com, has all the different places where you guys can get the stuff. Arthur Diamondhands is going to post down below, all the different links, like the BitChute and the library/Odyssey, and obviously the podcast, if you guys are listening to us. And please subscribe on, well, not that I'm like begging. If you're watching this on YouTube, I think we're like 40. I'm like 40 away from getting above 3,000. So that would be nice. If you're, one of those last people to get us over that hump, would be nice just to be able to break that. But anyways, I did last time mention I was looking for, like financial advisors who, are basically my line of thinking. And I did have a guy that was in, I think, graduate school contact me. So, if more people want to contact me, tim@innovativewealth.com, about potential job opportunities for, other financial advisors who are, basically Liberty mindset. Maybe they know about crypto. Obviously, they've got to, be able to speak this language somewhat, not looking for, your common average financial advisor type person, because they are obviously more than a dime a dozen, but trying to
Salespeople.
find- yeah, I'm looking for a good salesperson that knows about crypto, knows about
No, but I'm
G.Edward Griffin type stuff.
knows
But
about
yeah, the average person. Yeah, but no, I mean, if you can't sell, you can't do anything. But and also there's also support roles and doing things like, like maybe financial plans and data input and stuff like that. But yeah, we're rock and rolling over here, so that'd be the big ask.
I'm being Tim's friend. That's how I'm part of the team. I'm Tim's friend. So
part of the team. But anyways, no, and thank you so much to Arthur Diamondhands, the Bitcoin booster down there, who's been helping us out, big time. I know he's also in the Cash Daddies Discord, typing in lots of things over there, and being really active, and also obviously our Discord as well. That I've been, just I didn't realize till right now that my articles I've been saving weren't going to Discord. So now I need to go back and figure out my Zapier link.
We've been missing you, but I've been
I've been
able to
saving stuff. I just
help.
didn't
But
realize
yeah,
that
we would love to get
I
you.
wasn't going there because I'm
No.
still reading a
Yeah.
bajillion things a day, obviously. But anyways, no, thank you guys so much. This is Tim Picciott with the Liberty Advisor. You can find me at thelibertyadvisor.com. John Snice and the economictruth.org. You can find both of us at timandjohnshow.com with links to everything we just said. And then Arthur Diamondhands, anywhere you want people to find you other than Discord, or you want to be mysterious and just find you on the Discord?
I have a float account, Arthur Diamondhands.
Okay, float.app
Yeah, there you go.
/ Arthur Diamondhands.
He's a floater. We're all
Hey,
floaters
we're all
here.
floaters,
I'm
and
a floater.
I do like what they're doing over there, and I do obviously I'm good friends there in Kingsley and support what they're up to. But at the end of the day, I'm not. It's not about getting likes, not about being famous and people. It's about putting information out there, trying to actually For me, it was about having a record to be like, what, you guys said all this stuff you couldn't predict happen. Well, I was predicting so much shit for so long that people were like, you should just make it. And I were like, what? It was so ridiculous. I'm like, I just need to start putting it out there on video because people wouldn't. They would just think I was a liar.
Well, you weren't
putting
as
this stuff
cool
out
as
there.
Peter Schiff, Tim, right? Like that you were actually on mainstream TV in 2006-7.
Well, yeah, I
Exactly.
was also I was still in college getting propagandized and doing the whole fraternity life thing back then. But now, you know what? We've graduated. But I'm somewhat grateful 2008 happened. Otherwise, I probably would have been working at one of those big scumbag banks that we were mentioning earlier. But guess what? Nobody was hiring in 2008, at least for stockbroker, financial advisor. I wanted to be a stock analyst. I didn't want to have to sell anything. I didn't want to have to go around and beg people for the money. I wanted to be like in a cubicle and just go and nerd out and different stock analyst stuff I really wanted to do. But that job didn't exist in 2008. So, well, it did, but if you were like related to the right people or but I wasn't. And so anyways, I'm glad at how things
You weren't a Wall Street inbreeder.
Yeah, but I'm one of the few people I've never had a W-2 job outside of like, a lifeguard job when I was, but I've never, since I've graduated, I've never had a W-2 job, never was taking money from any of the big banks, never, how many people can say they've never had a W-2 job, outside of, bullshit, like, busboy job that I did and also lifeguard. Other than that, never had a W-2 job in my life, which if I did have a W-2 job, I probably would have bought, a bunch of Bitcoin early on and probably been retired by now. So I don't know why I'm bragging about that because, I was, struggling, trying to do the whole financial advisor thing, not being a great salesman in the beginning. But anyways, rocking and rolling now. Thank you guys so much. Thank you so much, Arthur Diamondhands. And catch us at timandjohnshow.com. Take care.